Hi, welcome to Bent TV. I'm Andy McNamara. Tonight we're talking about a topic that has some mental health implications. So some people might want to take that as a warning and turn off, but if you don't, I'd like to welcome Grace Lee to the show. Welcome, Grace. You are a member of Transgender Victoria. Maybe you can tell us what that is to start.
Absolutely, Andy. It's good to be here. Transgender Victoria is a long-established organisation that's been based here in Melbourne since 1999 and was really set up to advocate and educate and improve awareness around transgender issues. In other words, to support the transgender community and to communicate with the broader community across a range of sort of issues and ideas, and in particular, around advocating and helping shape legislation, as well as educating corporates and even the Victoria Police, for example.
So Transgender Victoria wasn't started by the government, it was started privately, but it's become quite closely involved with the government now.
Look, we have representation now on a number of sorts of government panels, so that's really important that we've actually got quite close relationships now with the state government ministers around health and human services and equality. Right. So that's given us, we've established a long line of credibility, I think, in terms of being able to do our best to represent the transgender individuals within sort of Victoria.
Terrific. Now, let's actually jump to the topic we're here to talk about.
Love to.
You have just written your thesis.
That's right,
a master's. Of your master's?
Yeah, I'm doing a master's in counselling and psychotherapy at the Cairn Miller Institute, which is a postgrad college that specialises in psychology in Camberwell. And I've been there for 3 years now, so I'm just kind of wrapping up my studies for the master's. And part of that study required me to produce, do a bit of research, and this is the result of the book.
You've worked hard for it, obviously.
It's, it's got a fair bit of writing in there, a lot of words.
What's it about?
Okay, so well, it's called Coming Out of the Closet, Stressors and Coping Mechanisms Associated with Coming Out as Transgender in Adulthood. So what I've done is to sort of look at the experiences of actually older trans women, so people a bit like myself.
So trans women, so people who've transitioned from being identified as male to living as female?
Yes.
Can you express that maybe better than I've possibly done it
Well, yes,
wrong?
I mean, it's people who felt that they have a diverse, if you like, gender identity. So they were all assigned male at birth. Yep. But through their lives, they've perhaps felt that they were in some way different. They felt they've identified more with women and with being female, and they've now reached the point in their lives where they've sort of come out. So, what's I suppose interesting about this is that we've seen a lot of publicity, a lot of positive media in the last few years around people who are transgender. We've seen Caitlyn Jenner, we've seen the Wachowski sisters, and so on, so more people are becoming much more aware of what it is to be transgender, and that perhaps it's and it's more acceptable to be open about it. So
in your study, the people who've transitioned in adulthood, what ages have the people in your study transitioned at?
Look, it varied. In this study, they went from about 40 years through to 77.
Wow. So you said in adulthood, but it's not 20-year-olds. It's really mature.
No, it's mature
adults.
people. And I think what was interesting for me there was one. It's I'm a mature adult as well. Right. So it was kind of exploring how did these people really cope with the sense of being different in the earlier parts of their life. Many of them, they haven't come out, except in later life. So they went to school. Most of them got married. They've got families, and somehow they didn't just one day wake up a couple of weeks ago and think I'm transgender. And prior to probably in the last few years, they wouldn't have actually had a language to describe what they were.
No, but they've known something's going on or something's wrong or different for 25 or 30 years.
Well, I mean, what I found was there's probably sort of 4 main sort of themes, and the first one is having that sense of difference, feeling that you're different from the other guys, and it may be that they just didn't want to, when they were at school, they didn't want to play with boys, they wanted to play with girls, that some of them cross-dressed from quite an early age, but they all had some kind of sense that they were different. And initially that was sort of good, except they very quickly learned that being different is not a good thing. Like it's frowned upon, especially when it comes to gender behaviours.
Yes.
So all of these people then kind of hid. So they kind of went into the closet. They didn't tell others about how they felt. And they, as they grew older, and for example, most of them had, would cross-dress. That was all done in secret.
Yes.
Then we tended to go, I've seen what then tends to happen is that people sort of kind of get on with their lives in one form or another. So as I said, they went to, they go to high school, they get jobs, and they'd sort of continue to hide, very often by being actually, quite masculine. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting that quite a few of the participants in this study took up martial arts.
Wow.
They took up fighting sports.
Wow.
They took up motorsport. They took up skydiving.
Wow.
They did all the risk-taking, macho kind of stuff.
The ultra male sort of things,
which was very much a way of them coping and trying to sort of, continue to disguise this sort of feeling that actually for most of them would generate shame. So there was a lot of, fear and shame in the earlier years, which they then suppressed through trying to cover those behaviours up.
I'm guessing the next step is the coming out, and it must be so hard to come out when you've built the career and the family and the, to suddenly say, I've been misleading the people I know and the people I love for 40 years and haven't been able to be honest.
Yeah, that's a critical element, I think. And for people, there were sort of different approaches to. They obviously became aware, probably in a lot of cases now through the internet, for example. So they became aware that there were other people around like them, and perhaps they weren't quite so unusual. And they started to find some sort of language to describe themselves, rather than being perhaps, a transvestite or a cross-dresser. They started to understand what transgender was, and that the fact that they could have a gender identity,
and that they're not a deviant, which was probably all the everything they've been brought up with.
Which is all part of that shame.
This is an awesome discussion and riveting, but we have to stop for a short interruption. I'm speaking with Grace Lee. I'm Andy McNamara. You're on Ben TV. We'll be back soon.